Bob Holt joining us from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And, Bob, I had to wonder for a moment because I thought you've told us before, was the first year that you covered Arkansas athletics 1981, or am I missing just by a year or two there?
No, you're right. I started at the Democrat, was then the Arkansas Democrat in June of 81. Yep.
June of 1981. So you got to cover as one of your first big assignments, I guess, is that victory over Texas. When Texas was number 1 in the country, Arkansas came in unranked and throttled them 42-11. What do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember, I'm sure it was a crowded press box. I don't know if I volunteered or what, but I actually, for maybe the only time I can recall, I covered the game from the sideline, kind of like an old high school game or something. But I wasn't the game writer. I did sidebars and things. Of course, Wally was there writing his column. Dave McCollum was the game writer. And but I remember being on the sidelines, and they issued like a tornado warning. And I remember thinking, I hope there isn't a tornado. And it was overcast and rained a little bit, but there wasn't a tornado, thankfully, unless you want to count the Razorbacks as a tornado that day hitting Texas. But, yeah, it was just unbelievable to see Texas just beating Oklahoma, and like you said, came in number 1. And, I think everybody thought Arkansas would give them a good game. And, I'm sure Lou Holt and the players and everybody were confident they'd win, but because he was so good at getting a team ready for big games. But just to see Texas get turnover after turnover, Arkansas just pop it in, with short field, most of the game. It was pretty unbelievable to see. And of course, the fans were coming out of the stands at the end. Holtz ran down there to the south end zone and kind of shoot them away, I guess you'd say. I remember he threw his watch. He was mad about a play, a call, and he threw his watch on the field. I don't know if that'll get you ejected now or something. It was just unbelievable. And, of course, the fans, I remember they closed Dixon Street. I was going to go down there after the game, after working, and they had closed it off, and there were all this broken. There was so much broken glass, I guess, beer bottles on the street that they didn't want people driving and getting all the flat tires and stuff, so they closed off Dixon Street for the one and only time I can remember. And the fans, I think dragged the goalpost down there and chopped it up or did whatever. And so yeah, it was a pretty surreal day.
Bob, you're describing what sounds like scenes of utter chaos as you're trying to focus in on a game, at the same time, and then write a story or whatever it was you were doing to help. It's a scene that I have trouble really imagining in my head, but at the same time, I kind of almost expect to see some chaos if Arkansas wins this one against the Longhorns. Might be a little tougher without Dorian Gerald, and look, I think the defensive line played very well last week against Rice, and it made me think that it is a deeper line, one that is able to withstand an injury to somebody that they expect production from, like Dorian Gerald. They didn't have Ridgeway last week. He's coming in. It'll be his first game of the year. But that already, and maybe we focus more on the idea of Dorian Gerald rather than how it affects the team. And it just only played 4 games the last 3 years. You never really got a sense of what he could have done when he was healthy.
Yeah, his first year here, of course, he had great stats in junior college. A lot of sacks, and then he came in. He got this weird neck injury in the very first game he played, and like an artery, some with an artery in his neck, and he was out the whole year. I remember thinking, well, you don't come back and play after, an artery to your neck injury. But yet he came back and played last year, and I think he might have played in like parts of 7 games, but he got an ankle injury. And he had COVID. I don't have the stats in front of me. Yeah, so he dealt with that last year. And then here, plays 1 game and apparently he's out for the season. So, you feel bad for him. And obviously a blow to the team, but you feel really bad for him that he just had to deal with so many things physically that kept him off the field. But like you said, there's no doubt the line is deeper this year, getting, two Mizzou transfers, let's say, and Williams and Ridgeway will be able to play. Apparently, he's having a good week of practice. Of course, he's an inside player. Gerald was an outside player, but they've got versatility. I assume Zach Williams will start. He's really looks like an SEC end now. He's up to 260. I think he was a little over 200 when he first got here. So lots of plays, a true freshman. And so I think they'll be okay there. But, yeah, you definitely feel really bad for Dorian Gerald.
Yeah, we do really feel bad for him because, never really got the chance to develop and see what type of athlete he could have really been here at the University of Arkansas. But one thing that I think it was that's still a concern to a lot of people. We're only 1 week in, but we know how the start of Rice went really slow and took a while for the tempo to get going and for the offense to start rolling. How much of an emphasis do you think or do you know that Sam Pittman and that coaching staff has put on getting off to a good and fast start this week?
Well, I'm sure it's been a big point of emphasis. Both sides of the ball, special teams. They had a blocked punt last week and they had a fumble on a kickoff, which they recovered. But, yeah, they got to be sharper in all three phases to beat Texas, I think. Now, maybe Texas will come in here and lay an egg. I don't think so. I mean, Louisiana, Lafayette's a pretty good team. I think I didn't watch that game, but Texas beat them by 20. So, I think, Texas, we know they always have athletes. I mean, they're Texas, And so it'll be a tough game, but it's definitely a game Arkansas can win. I think they're going to have to play well. It's like Sam Pittman said, they're going to play a full game. They can't play a good half like they did last week, like a bad half and then a good half. They got to play 2 good halves to have a shot to beat Texas. But, K.J. Jefferson, obviously his passing stats were not good, especially in the first half. But there were some drops there that didn't help him. I'm sure they're trying to get some quick, easy passes for him to kind of build up some confidence. And then, some of it was his fault, some of it was the receiver's fault, that he didn't get off to a better start. But, we'll see what happens. The first game, he's a bit very unpredictable. I know that was his 3rd career start, but it was his first start at home, and I'm sure there were a lot of nerves. And so I think he'll play better. But obviously, the team he's playing is a lot better than Rice, too.
Well, and Sam Pittman says he expects to see an extra defender in the box in order to force K.J. Jefferson to throw the ball. And so, you get this sense that maybe the way to open the offense up and get K.J. comfortable is to show that he can throw the ball early with accuracy. And, of course, that can be the issue. And it's like this almost a catch-22 the way that Coach Pittman describes it, Bob. He says that K.J. gets more comfortable throwing the ball after a successful run. But if they're going to play a guy up in the box, they're going to be watching him. So, there's a catch-22 there. And the ability to establish one or the other early is going to be tough.
Yeah, and I guess that Texas would probably use what I think we call a spy. Like, there may just be like a linebacker or somebody just to sign like, hey, wherever he goes, you go, But I think Arkansas has got a good enough offensive line and to run, even if Texas is looking to stop. Obviously, if you're Texas or anybody, after last week, you say, well, we're going to make them, we're going to make Arkansas beat us throwing the ball. But, Traylon Smith had a good game, their running back. Rocket Sanders had a pretty good game. So I think Arkansas has got some depth there at running back. Obviously, KJ can run. I think he's going to have a pretty good game running the ball, frankly, for Arkansas to win. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure. I mean, they want to get too tricky and out-trick themselves. But I'm sure they probably have some wrinkles, in for this game with KJ in the running game that they didn't show against Rice.
Back to the defensive side there, Bob. And I know one of the big emphasis in practice has been getting away from penalties. There were a lot of penalties, and unfortunately there were 2 targeting penalties. Grant Morgan will luckily be able to play the full game since his was in the first half of the Rice game. But unfortunately, Bumper Pool will have to sit out the first half. How much of a loss is that going to be, and who do they look for to make up the ground that they've lost for a half without Bumper Pool?
Well, Hayden Henry will start, and we'd all, at least I think everybody in the media had forgotten about it because I don't remember everybody bringing it up. When Hayden Henry didn't play in the first half against Rice, you're thinking, well, what's going on there, But he had to serve the first half penalty going back to the Alabama game last season. He was called for targeting on Mac Jones. And so that normally that penalty would have been served in the bowl game. They're supposed to play TCU in the Texas Bowl, and then TCU had a COVID outbreak, so the bowl game didn't happen. So that suspension carried over, the first half suspension, whatever you want to call it, carried over to the next season, which I honestly cannot remember anything like that ever happening. So that was so weird. They didn't have Henry in the first half at all, and then Grant Morgan got ejected in the first quarter, about midway through, I think, and then, of course, Bummer got ejected about midway through the fourth quarter. But, yeah, Hayden Henry will start, and, if you're an Arkansas fan, you just hope they don't get any more ejections. But watching the games I've watched have all had targeting calls, or most of them have, and even after all these years, there seems to be a lot of disagreement and confusion about what constitutes targeting, what doesn't. And you're hearing this more and more voices, whether it's commentators, coaches, players, whoever. But okay, if you want to, everybody's for safety in the game. I don't think there's any, argument about that. You want players to be safe, and the intention of the rule is good. But maybe if you want to penalize somebody, okay, but don't eject them. And maybe if they do it, if you get another targeting call, then you can toss them. It's kind of like the basketball version of flagrant 1 and flagrant 2, where it's all flagrant foul on a guy, and the technical, the other team gets to shoot free throws. But the flagrant 2, where you feel like maybe a guy just unloads on a player on a breakaway, and it was just he wasn't playing the ball at all, not even attempting to make it look like he was playing the ball. Then the guy gets ejected. So, but I don't think we're going to see a real change during the season. Then maybe after the season.
Well, that's the part of it. Like, we can all hate the rule and complain about it and hate tweet about it and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter because the rule right now is being enforced the way it's being enforced. And Sam Pittman says, I don't know how to handle it. Maybe we got to lower the target on where our guys are shooting at the body, at the opposing ball carrier. But I mean, it's the kind of a rash of these penalties now. I mean, I'd forgotten about Henry's targeting against Alabama, but when you look at 2 against Catalan last year, you finished 1 with Henry, and then already your 2 starting linebackers. There's a bit of it's a bit of a problem right now for Arkansas football, and you could say it across college football, yes, but for this team specifically, it's an issue.
Well, yeah, when you lose 3 at your top part of the first game, that's not good. I mean, Andrew Parker, a guy who's not played a whole lot. He played some in the past, but he came in there and did a pretty good job based on what the coaches said. I think he played over 40 snaps on defense. So, I mean, can you imagine if this was the Dre Greenlaw Scooter Harris days, and those guys had both gotten ejected? I mean, Arkansas wouldn't have any linebackers really to play. I mean, those guys are both great linebackers, but that was really the linebacker room, It was like they were like, the old silent thing and pray for rain or whatever baseball. People probably are too young to remember that. Yeah, I'm still young, sure. I hope you know what I'm talking about. Not remember it at the time, so 50.
I know exactly what you're getting at.
Yeah, but I mean, they got a little bit more depth. And, we talked to Hayden Henry this week, and you can tell he's raring to go. And I think the players, they're still going to play aggressively. And so I've seen this brought up, is that, hey, the offensive guy lowers his head too. I mean, but you never hear about targeting on an offensive player.
Right.
Like offensive interference or a charge in basketball or something. So maybe they need to start looking at that more closely. But, it's just a bang play, and a guy lowers his head, and, you talk about going lower, but if the offensive player goes low, maybe it's like, well, I should have hit him up high, and I would have hit him in the shoulder. It's a really tough thing. The referees have a tough job, and I know everybody wants to get on them, but they're supposed to enforce the rules, especially when it's safety. And thankfully, I don't remember seeing any big neck injuries or anything the last few seasons. But that's what it's designed to do, is to protect the players. So it's good intentions, but maybe the execution needs to be better on everybody's part.
Hey, Bob, we got to run. Appreciate your time, man. Always fun talking with you. Have fun covering this one on Saturday. I think it'll be fun.
Okay, you guys take care.
Bob Holt, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. He'll be joining us next Thursday as usual. And our Hogs and Horns coverage continues all week long. Tomorrow we are at Century Bank of the Ozarks in Mountain Home. And that should be I'm excited to get out there later today. Right now, we're about to wrap up shop at Whole Hog Cafe at the Phoenix Avenue location in Fort Smith. We've had plenty of people coming in, and I'm staring at those last 2 burnt ends, Drew.
Oh, so good.
Don't you accuse me of taking your food.
I mean, technically you did. That was off of my plate.
I didn't mean to. All right, we'll come back after the break. If Drew and I can stand looking at each other after I steal the rest of his food. Halftime wraps it up next.
It's that time of the year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all of the pro and college football action this season. Get all of the updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest 200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Here's what you have to do. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. Take advantage of their opening day super promo. Make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager's going to be refunded for up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.